Hey everybody, welcome to the Evening Reader. My name is Priscilla, and I'm here to do a weekly wrap up or catch up or whatever you want to call it. Here to talk about what I've been reading and some of my plans going forward. I was going to say for July, but then I realized that July is actually still 2 weeks away. I keep thinking it's next weekend. Does anybody else feel like June is like, where did May go? I still feel like I should be back in May somehow. Yeah, I don't know. So, uh, first though, thank you for your all your comments and for watching my previous video. Lots of thoughtful comments, a lot to chew on. I guess the situation will just remain unresolved. I'm not that to me, that's the big question now is that Elizabeth Gilbert's book has been postponed or pulled from the current publication schedule. And, I guess who will get to say when it goes back on the schedule? That's the big question, I suppose. I'm if she does get to publish it, if she decides to publish it at some point, I will read it because I was interested in it already. I had already put it on my TBR. I thought it sounded very interesting. I like Elizabeth Gilbert. I like her writing. I have read several books by her. I haven't read all of her most popular book. I guess it's her most popular book, Eat, Pray, Love. I read the Italy section. And, I liked that part, but I kind of went on and didn't finish it because it just didn't really interest me. But I have read her book, The Last American Man, which is about a guy. I think he lives in North Carolina, and he's sort of a survivalist. Really, that was a very fascinating book, very well done. And I read her novel, The Signature of All Things, which is about a woman who is an amateur botanist in the 17th century or the 18th century. 17th century, I think, maybe. But it's still just beautifully written, meticulously researched, which was one of the reasons why I thought this latest book would probably be very well done because she does a lot of work. She does a lot of research. I haven't read City of Girls, but I've heard really good things about it. So, and then I have read her book Big Magic on Creativity. It gets a bit woo-woo, but I still mostly though it's just inspirational and I really enjoy it. I've probably read that 3 or 4 times. Uh, and I have heavily annotated it. So, I don't know. She's doing something right, at least for me. So I guess, whatever she does publish next, I will be reading it. So I guess all this is just to say, I don't agree with that decision that she made, but I'm not, I'm not canceling her in terms of my TBR or my reading. So there you go. Okay, so reading lately. I had to DNF Christadora. I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep going. I got to about, I don't know, maybe 68% because I'm reading it on Kindle. So I don't know what page I'm on. And two characters just do something that is very clearly this happens in service to the plot and to what the author needs to have happen in the book versus what these two characters would probably do otherwise, given who they are, given the circumstances. It just didn't make any sense at all. And I realized that it also sets off something else in the book that has sort of been being set up all the way through the book. And so you kind of know where you're moving, but I was thinking, please not that, or if it's that, just please handle this well, and it just was not well handled. So seeing that, and I was, it just everything being sort of just crammed in for the service of, I guess, a one big point. And I'm guessing what the big point is because I obviously didn't finish the book, but just to backtrack. So Christadora is a building in New York City in the East Village. It's a real building. It was a tenement building built in the 1920s. And it, it was fine for a while. It fell kind of into ruin during the 60s and 70s. And then it was purchased and then purchased again and then and rehabbed in the 80s. And one character, Jared, his father buys an apartment in the building and then he gives it to Jared. Jared is the husband of Millie. And they come together. They are an upper middle class Jewish couple. In the 1990s, they're in their 20s. The book spans a time from about 1981 until about 2012. And I guess the full thing is what we learn at the beginning of the book, that Millie and Jared, they're in their late 20s or early 30s, and they have a little boy named Mateo, whom they have adopted, whose mother died from complications from AIDS. And they live in the Christadora in this apartment, and with Mateo, they have a neighbor named Hector who is going to be kicked out of the building because he has been hustling in the building, and he has also been selling drugs. And he himself is, kind of a shady character, but Millie feels bad for him because he used to work with her mother, who used to work for the New York City Department of Health. And then her mother left that job and started a place called the Judith House, which was a home for women who had HIV or AIDS and needed a place to live. And some of those children, when the mothers either passed away or if the mothers could not care for the children, went to this boys' home or children's home, which is how Millie ends up with Mateo. It's a bit complicated. It's a bit convoluted. It's multi-point of view from Millie, Mateo, Hector, and sometimes Ava. Ava is Millie's mother's point of view. There is also another character, Millie's best friend, Drew, who lives in Los Angeles. They meet in New York. She moves out to Los Angeles. She also plays a role. And then it also moves, as I said, through time. But it doesn't move chronologically. It skips around through time. And so we see Mateo when he is older. We see him develop a drug problem. He develops a heroin addiction. And he is, the idea is that he starts doing drugs. He finds heroin and he starts doing drugs because he feels like he doesn't belong in the world he lives in, which is that world of privilege. His parents are artists. They teach at two different arts magnet schools. They live in this Christadora. They're both of them come from families who have a lot of money. And Mateo just doesn't quite feel like he fits in or belongs, and so he starts doing drugs, and it relieves him of a lot of anxiety. And his path ends up crossing with Hector's path. And oh, there is another point of view character, and that is also Isabel or Izzy, who is Mateo's mother. We also have some chapters from her point of view. It's all in third person. And so we learn what happened to her and sort of her backstory and how she came to be, or, that she contracted AIDS, and, she gets involved with Ava, Millie's mother, and with Hector, and trying to oh, what's the word I want? She's working with the AIDS movement. She's trying to get housing. She's trying to get people funding for medicine. Hector is a scientist. He is working with Washington, D.C. and the FDA to develop all of these drugs that were developed in the late 80s and throughout the 90s, trying to get the cocktail right to help stop the spread of HIV and AIDS, or to help prevent it from killing so many people as it had been. Sorry, that's kind of a blah 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 blah, but yeah, there is a lot here. And the thing is, so Tim Murphy was a journalist who covered HIV AIDS crisis for 25 years, and also LGBTQ issues for many years. So, he definitely has a lot of information. He has a lot of knowledge, and probably talked to many different people involved in different sides of, trying to get people housing, trying to get people medicine, trying to get notice from city government, state government, federal government, and all of these things. The main thing is that, we've got characters in the book who they're things that they're doing in the book are obviously, it becomes pretty obvious that they're servicing the plot. They're servicing a point, I think, that Murphy wants to make, more so than they are fully fleshed out, really thoughtful and reflective characters. And that's a problem. Probably the character who gets the most, maybe who's the best built out, or the two characters would probably be Mateo and Hector. Although I would say, even in Hector's case, there's sort of a lack of interiority, so, or reflection on a lot of things. Like, he goes, at one point he's at an AmFAR benefit with Elizabeth Taylor, and they have had a lot of success with their latest drug trials. It's very, very promising. Basically, he's thinking, I think this is it. I think we've made it. I think we're done. And, he when he's thinking to himself, he starts to think about the science and all the different drugs they tried, and what they were, and what their side effects were, and what the symptoms were. And he's thinking all of this while he's sitting at the benefit, and it just doesn't make any sense. It seems like he would be thinking about his partner, maybe more, who had passed away from AIDS, or from all the people he's helped, or maybe thinking back about why he had decided to become a scientist in the first place, but instead he's going through all of these medicines and their side effects. And it feels like, well, here's interiority, you're in his head, but here's also all this information here about all the drugs that they tried, and what the side effects were, and what people had to suffer from. It feels like an info dump. And there's a lot of that there in this book. The other thing is Millie herself. She was part of my big rant last week. Millie and Jared are really just types. When I was complaining about the brand names and the clothing when she goes to the boys' home and she first sees Mateo and she notes what he's wearing and she says he has on Old Navy sneakers, which is like why. Um, it just got stranger after that because she continues to go to the boys' home, she continues to see Mateo. There's no reflection. There's never any point in that narrative where she's going through this action where she's really thinking about Mateo and his life there and that she could give him a better life or what these boys are suffering from or not having their mothers. And she just shows up every week. And then weirdly, the sister who runs the home asks her one week, do you think, you would want to foster Mateo? And she's like, oh, I think maybe I would. And then the sister says, well, you can foster him if he says yes. And then Mateo basically says no. And then she decides that she really, really wants to do it. She really wants it because the kid doesn't want her. So she keeps going back. And then another little boy starts to is she's leaving Mateo sort of alone. She never ever reflects on why Mateo is always by himself and not with the other boys. That's another thing. She spends time with this other little boy who's just lapping up her attention. And all she's doing is sitting there thinking, well, this little boy's paying so much attention to me and he just wants my attention, but I just want Mateo. It's just really strange. And then when it sort of comes to a head, and it's possible that maybe they could foster Mateo, she goes home and she tells her husband, I think I want to be a foster parent to this little boy. And then they proceed to have a conversation over the course of 4 or 5 pages that is like if she'd come home and said, I think we should buy a new sofa and I think we should go to Pottery Barn. And he's like, well, I think we should, if we're going to get a new sofa, that's a big decision, but I think we should go to Crate and Barrel. I mean, the discussion has all the depth of that kind of decision. That it's just bizarre. And you just, there's no depth, there's no reflection. And I think what's going on, because Millie's sort of been this way, we've been watching her do things and make just weird decisions. I really think that maybe the message here, or that Murphy might have been trying to get at was, there were a lot of these clueless, privileged people, white people, who adopted these kids or fostered or adopted these kids and were getting in over their heads. And, and that's fine. I mean, that may be really completely true. And that there were kids who ended up just feeling completely bewildered by where they ended up and didn't know what to do. And nobody really knew what to do. But Millie she's weirdly passive. She's focused on the most odd things, even later when Mateo has an actual raging heroin addiction. She's still just, the descriptions of her are, she's still beautiful. Here's what she's wearing. Like her child has a raging heroin addiction. It's just strange, but I think that the idea is, sort of that these people were not thinking and they shouldn't have been doing this. Maybe, I don't know if that's why he made her so just flat, two-dimensional and just shallow. The problem is that, I mean, that may be true, and in real life maybe that is true, but for a book it doesn't work. It feels like a type, and it falls flat. It takes away the tension, it takes away the drama. If she had a real drive for some reason to adopt or to be a mom, if there had been more reflection on what she saw at the boys' home, if she was less ambivalent about being a parent than she is in the book, and also her partner Jared, if they had a real discussion, or if they had a real conflict, or if she was trying to save her marriage, it all would have, it could have, it maybe could have worked. But ultimately, yeah, there's just, it's becomes very clear that the author is going to make these things happen. He's going to make it go in a certain way, and he's not really thinking about, okay, these characters really probably wouldn't do that, or, well, that doesn't really make sense, or, yeah. So ultimately, yeah, it did not work for me. There is my long-winded, I guess, sort of pseudo. It's not really a review. Um, Given that he's a journalist, I think it probably would have been better for him to write a nonfiction book. I was thinking about, there was a book called, I think it was called Family Matters. I think the author was Adrian LeBlanc. I think that's right. She was a journalist. That was a really fantastic book. And when I was reading this, I was thinking, I wonder why he didn't do something like that. Uh, and I'll put the information on that book in the description box. But yeah, okay. Anyway, what else? I'm still reading Lonesome Dove. Another reason probably why Christadora just didn't seem that good, because how could anything seem that good next to Lonesome Dove? I mean, Larry McMurtry is just such a fantastic writer. He's a natural yarn spinner, and it's just going so flowing, just flowing right along. Really enjoying that. Somebody asked in the comments if Lonesome Dove is violent, and I had said, well, there is some violence, but it's not really gratuitous. I still don't think that it's gratuitous, but the book got a lot more violent after I gave that answer. And I had forgotten. I have not read this book since the 90s, so I had forgotten that there is quite a bit of violence in the middle of the book, and it's some of it's graphic, it's quick. Um, McMurtry said he wanted it to be not romanticized at all, and so uh, it doesn't go on for pages and pages, but there are things that are a little hard to stomach. So if you are planning to read this and you are sensitive, I mean, just be, fair warning there, I guess. Oh yeah, so this is getting long. So I don't know. I think I'm gonna read Affinity for my next Pride book. So I read Southernmost by Silas House, Christadora DNF, and so I think I'm gonna do this one next. And then I was thinking about July and August. And I'm thinking right now that I'm not doing any events in July and August. I bought a lot of books. I even bought a few more books since the last time I talked to you. And I need to read the books. I want to read those books. So I think that I am going to focus on just, yeah, picking up some of these different things, and letting myself mood read for 2 months instead of sticking. This has been great this month, especially because I was going to reread Lonesome Dove this year anyway. That was a goal I had. I'm hoping still to do Victober. I've got Middlemarch for that. Maybe I'll get another book for that. We'll see where I am. I'm also going to be doing the Helen DeWitt read along with Hardcover Hearts, Sarah at Hardcover Hearts, and Leo at Leo's Little Book Life, that they're planning to do, but that does not start until the end of August. So, and then I'm going to do nonfiction November for sure, because I have a large stack of nonfiction, so I can mood read my way through November going through that nonfiction stack. So I guess that's about it. I had other things I wanted to talk about. One thing, I am getting ready tomorrow to start the 1000 Words of Summer, which is a writing event that's hosted by the writer Jamie Attenberg. I'll put the information in the description box. But essentially, it's just kind of a 2 week writing sprint where you write 1,000 words a day, every single day for 2 weeks. I have done this for the last 5 years, and it really helps me to get going. I need to get refocused on my writing. I have not been writing much since we got back from the States. I've been distracted. I've piddled, but I'm usually very focused and dedicated and write every day, and I have not been writing every day. So I'm excited to get back to that. And so I'll probably, maybe I'll do a little update on that as I go through. But if you're working on a writing project or you want to start a writing project, this is a fun way to do it. It can be any kind of writing. It can be a journal, it can be poetry, it can be editing, it could be a thesis, a dissertation, a memoir, um, a family history, anything that you want to work on, that you want to write, and you just want to get that project going. This is a really great way to do it. So yeah, information in description box. What else? I feel like I had all these things I wanted to talk about, and well, I guess I Christadora myself right out of talking about anything else. So I guess I'll leave it here. I hope that you have a fantastic weekend. I hope you have some fun plans, or else maybe you are planning to rest and relax and that you're going to enjoy that. And yeah, I guess that I will see you again next week. I think next Tuesday I might do the mid-year book tag. Um, but we'll see. I may save it for the following week. And yeah. Okay, well, I hope that you have a good weekend. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for coming to visit me, and take care. Bye.